Likma. No bang. Strangely enough, while I was waiting for things to develop, the custodian walked in on me with this on my head. He seemed very concerned. I obviously don't care that much because if anybody's ever seen me out in public during Spirit Week, it's clear how much I don't care, how ridiculous I look. If you were a kid at all in the 90s, one thing that was really cool to do that my mom never let me do, thanks a lot, Mom, was dye your hair with Kool-Aid, or attempt to dye your hair with Kool-Aid. Now, like I said, I was never allowed to do this, but I figured, one of my favorite things to do is mess up my hair, so why not do it on camera for my students and go through the process of scientific inquiry while I do it. Now, if you don't know what the process of scientific inquiry is, it's just basically a process that you go through in order to answer a question or solve a problem. And there's no necessarily specific way to do that process. You may have seen a poster that says like the scientific method, hypothesis, do an experiment, collect data, analyze the data, and make a conclusion. And that's something that a lot of science teachers have moved away from, but we still use those steps. It's just in all different orders in order to answer a question or solve a problem. And it's something that you do every day without even thinking about it. It's something that you do every day without even thinking about it. Whether you're playing a game, or you're trying to dye your hair with Kool-Aid, or you're trying to figure out how to get someplace, if you are able to drive, which if you're the audience in the classroom where I am forcing people to watch this, you should not be driving, at least not a car, but there are probably other things that you are able to drive. But either way, anytime that you have to do something and then figure out how to do it or go through some sort of process of steps, you are essentially doing the process of scientific inquiry. Now, when you're going through this process, the very first thing that you're going to do is obviously formulate a question. So in this case, my question today is, can I achieve the colorful results that I want in my hair with a packet of Kool-Aid? Which, strangely enough, this was much harder to find at the store than I thought it would be, which I feel like that speaks a lot to what is acceptable to feed your children these days, because apparently it's not colorful flavor packets mixed with sugar and water and questionable food burnt into plastic trays, but that's what I ate growing but that's what I ate growing up, and here I am still today. So I guess, whatever. But we're not going to use this for drinking. We're going to use this for hair dyeing. So question, can I dye my hair with Kool-Aid? Now, before I continue on my hair journey, I need to do some research because I didn't actually really know how to dye my hair with Kool-Aid. I just knew I could do it. Obviously, I have dyed my hair with many other things, but not Kool-Aid. So I went online like everybody does, and I went into Google and I started my research. Now, an important thing to note, if you are a student in my science class, when you are doing research, please, 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 please do not go in to Google. Do not type in the question and then freak out when you can't find the answer, number one, because if you just typed in like, I don't know, can I dye my hair with Kool-Aid? Well, can I dye my hair with Kool-Aid? You will probably get some results, but likely any question that you have on something for your science class, say, that you type into Google, you may not always find the answers right away, and they definitely will not always show up as the top thing on the top of like your search results. But anyway, nobody should just be Googling a question and taking the first thing that comes up on the Google search results. That's terrible research. That's not even research. That's just being lazy. So I did some real research, and I went into YouTube and watched a bunch of tutorials, most of which were terrible, and I should know this because I have followed terrible YouTube tutorials for my hair before with varying results. Hopefully this tutorial about hair and using Kool-Aid goes well, and if not, laugh at my expense, please. So, first step in the process of scientific inquiry in this hair dyeing experiment, we've got our question. Can we dye our hair with Kool-Aid? I did some research, I made some observations using my senses about what other people's results were, and then I kind of formulated my own experiment. Now before I formulate my experiment, I'm going to make a hypothesis or a claim. Now, you've probably heard the word hypothesis before. The word hypothesis is often said to be an educated guess, and I guess that's a decent way to put it. You've done research, you've made observations, that would be the educated part, and then you're predicting or guessing what's going to happen in your experiment. So, for the purposes of my class, and probably a lot of other science classes, you have an if, then, and sometimes a because statement. So if I do something in my experiment, if I change something in my experiment, then this will happen. So in my experiment, if I use Kool-Aid in my hair, then my hair will change to the color of the Kool-Aid. How cool is that? I know, yeah. All right, so then our next step is to plan our experiment and then execute our experiment. And this is probably the part that you're looking forward to the most. But before we do our experiment, we need to have kind of step by step detailed directions. Now, if you've ever watched a YouTube tutorial and then tried that tutorial and have had it fail miserably, like me and the unicorn haircut, then you know that most people are not very good at giving directions. Also, they're not very good at addressing something called variables. You probably have heard the word variables before, and if you haven't, let me break them down for you. So, a variable is any factor that you have to take into consideration for your experiment. One of those factors you will change or you will be testing. So that is called your independent variable. So the independent variable is the factor or part of your experiment that you are going to test or change. So my independent variable for this experiment is the Kool-Aid. I'm testing the Kool-Aid. I could, test something else, like I could compare Kool-Aid versus some other hair dye, but that's kind of getting a little ahead of myself. So for the purposes of this experiment, my independent variable is testing Kool-Aid, the Kool-Aid. Okay? You should only ever change one independent variable in your experiment. Only one, not 27 of them, because otherwise you will not really have any good idea about what your results will be. What you're going to measure in your experiment is something called the dependent variable. So for this experiment, my dependent variable, what I'm measuring is whether or not the Kool-Aid will dye my hair. So the independent variable, the thing I'm testing, is the Kool-Aid, and then what I'm measuring is whether or not it can change the color of my hair. So I have one independent variable that I'm changing or testing, and then I've got a dependent variable that I'm measuring. There are also things called controls in an experiment. Because you only change one thing in an experiment, you have to keep as much of the other stuff controlled and the same. So, for example, you don't want to be, using Kool-Aid and then another type of powdered drink mix and then mixing them together, because you're not really getting a good idea if it's the Kool-Aid that's actually dyeing the hair or something else. So if I was going to do this experiment with a bunch of other people, I would want to make sure that I control, like, for hair type, because, everybody has different types of hair, and I would want people with hair that's the same type or color as mine in order to see if I get the same results every time. this looks like it's heated up. Remember, I had 30 milliliters of water. It looks like it's nice and bubbly now, and I can pour it in. So remember, I had 15 milliliters of water per packet. I'm gonna mix that up. So I'm gonna turn this off. I'm gonna move it to the side. I've got a little heat doodad, heat mitt thing. That's not really a heat mitt, but it will do the trick. I'm gonna pour my water into my mixing bowl right here. Ooh, from my beaker. Look at that, oh beautiful. Okay, put it back over there to cool off. Put my gloves on, don't forget your gloves. Gloves, gloves, gloves. Yes, the gloves. Oh, beautiful vinyl gloves. So lovely. So lovely. I didn't even know that was so great. Yes. Okay, so I'm gonna open this up and I'm gonna pour the orange packet in. I feel like I've gotten much more comfortable doing this as time's gone on, and I'm gonna pour it into, oh, I feel like someone's gonna yell at me because they see the, okay, so I'm gonna take this orange packet and I'm gonna pour it into my bowl. Now I'm gonna take the pink packet. Ooh, it smells so good. It smells like childhood. Try not to, you don't want to waste any. I had a whole bunch just fall out onto the lab table. Just gonna, okay. Pour that in there. Okay, and then we're gonna mix it up, mix it up, mix it up. I like to make up songs about mixing stuff up. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. If you don't get that, you're not old enough to get it. So, beaker. So you guys can see. Ooh, beautiful. This is not going to be very accurate or precise. My camera is not. Oh, there we go. Hello. Good job, camera. You can see like all the little squirty things. I'm trying to tap it on the lab table so it gets a little bit better, but it's definitely not very accurate or precise, but I'm trying my best to make it so because this is a science experiment and I want to do it that way. I should do it that way because it's a science experiment. It doesn't tell me, it tells grams. That should be basically milliliters. Okay. So if I'm looking eye level, just below the 60 milliliter mark, so I'm going to start to put that in to here. So I'm going to put it into this guy, mix it in. I'm going to dump it in first and then I'll mix it on closer to camera. It's a good thing I put it in a higher container, I guess, because it just splashed in. And you're going to make kind of like basically a colored conditioner. So this is way more than I need by a lot, but that's okay. So I've got this this paste in place, and I'm going to now do the next step, which is to color it. Now, the way that actually I'm going to kind of do like an ombre effect, and the way that I do this when I do my own hair with like a bleach is to do a little backcombing. I have a mirror right here. Why am I not looking in the monitor and not in the mirror? Back home. Back home. Oh, look at that rat's nest. That's beautiful. Okay, and now, once I have that in place, I'm going to take the pieces they wouldn't, and I'm going to get a foil. I'm going to put it here. And look in the mirror. And I want to fully saturate. Oh. Trying to like do too many things at one time. Okay, I'm going to fully saturate this with the solution that I've created. paint it on there. Now you can, I don't always like using the brush. I kind of like using my fingers sometimes, and like blending stuff in. But really make sure that this is like fully saturated on there. If you're like, and like I said, if you want to do the whole thing, you can. Some of us are kind of more tactile people, and I oftentimes will also just use my fingers to blend things in, but really make sure that it's all the hairs. Get all the hairs. Somebody suggested I do the school colors, and those are blue and yellow, and that the idea of blue was just a little frightening to me. So, all right. So now I'm going to take the foil, fold it up, fold it over. I'm not very good at foils. I realize this. You'll watch like beautiful videos of people that can foil well because they're actually trained professionals, and I'm a trained and licensed professional in education, and it's not hair education. I'm a trained and licensed professional in science education, and those are not necessarily the same thing. But trained and licensed hair professionals use science, so yay for science! Okay, so the last part of the experiment, well, not necessarily the last part of this experiment, but the next step in this experiment is to let this sit for 2 hours, according to the method that I saw. Now, there are some methods that suggest going for like up to, there are some methods that suggest going for like 8 hours. I will probably sit for like maybe an hour and then check on it. And then if I feel like we're making some colorful headway, I'll take out the foil and just rinse it and be done. But if I feel like we need more time, then I'll wait another hour. But that's always the important thing with hair color. So, yeah, let's take down the other side and see what's happening here, because it doesn't look like very much. Okay. In fact, it looks like it's the same. Alright, so after 2 hours and 15 minutes again of having the mixture on my hair, you can kind of see that one like very pale orange. It looks almost yellow in this camera, but it does look more orangey in real life. If I can zoom out a little bit, that one little tiny streak is sort of picked up color. So I think if you're going to do the Kool-Aid and conditioner mixture, it has to be on definitely more than 2 hours and 15 minutes to see any results, I would say. This could just be an issue with the orange, but obviously I added another packet of orange to kind of more saturate my conditioner solution, so I went outside to show you the results of changing the experiment to leaving the Kool-Aid in overnight, just so you get some better, brighter lighting, even though it's cloudy out today. Not a huge difference. The bottom like strands there are overnight, and the top strands or a little section there is just my hair color without the Kool-Aid. So not a huge difference. So I don't know if it's just the color of the Kool-Aid or the process with which I mixed the Kool-Aid with the conditioner, or the conditioner itself that impacted the saturation of color. But after tweaking the experiment twice, I still didn't get the results that I was looking for, but it's a pretty light kind of orange. So this Kool-Aid process, not as successful as I was hoping, but if you're looking for a subtle color change, that might be, this might be the process for you. So while my results were, you know, no good and I didn't get what I was hoping for, there are plenty of other people that have had success with this. That is not to say that you should try this at home. Obviously, if you are not the owner of your home or have the money to fix any countertops that you stain, or even buy the products to run this experiment, probably should check and see if it's okay to do it first. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more science videos.